Good evening. This is the day 2 video submission for programming of the user sign-up, validation, and connection to the database. So we will now get into explaining the features that we implemented in this day 2. So as you can see, in the previous day, we created this UI for a user sign-in and as well as a user sign-up. But for the previous day, we did not have any validations. So I will show you now that the validations are in place. So if you click create an account, it says please enter the first name. So we go ahead and type first name. Yeah. Then it says enter the last name. So we'll go with last name. And enter the email address. So we now can just type something, right? First name again, and then we'll say invalid email address. So first name at youremail.com. That should be correct. Yes. Then it asks us to enter the password. So we can first we'll input 2 passwords, 123, 123. It says it has to be between 8 and 20 characters. So I'll put password 123, and it says passwords do not match, so we have to get this as well. Password 123. And when I select the skill as a buyer and agree to the terms and conditions, and it is registration successful. Yeah, so that is all that we have done for the second day, but it's a lot of work, and we will get into how it works, how we implemented it. We will first start with going through the database. So this is the yard diagram of the database. So we have a user, and the user has an account type. And the account type, user has an account type. So because it's many-to-many, we get another table over here that is dependent on both of these. So as you can see, the user table uses ID that is auto-incremented, whereas the account type, and the account type does not have that. We have to input the primary key when we have to implement it, whereas this will get auto-updated incrementally. So that means every time someone creates a user, they will get an automatically created user ID. So now we did input some data. We can actually check that from the IDSQL. We go to the user table, go to data, and as you can see, first name, last name, these are exactly the details. We also have a special characteristic here. We have the passwords hashed, so you cannot see. If you remember, we typed password 123, but it does not show us the password 123. Instead, it shows a hash value that is basically encrypted. And this is the account type that we have used, created at, and updated. So in case we do any updates, it gets updated here. But for now, it shows the created time, 7:32, February 14, 2026. Right, now we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the code. So yesterday all we did was create the index.html, create all the labels, the input, the buttons. We spoke about that in the previous one. So today the main thing was first we did some validation using .js, JavaScript. So we create some variables and collect the data from its own ID. So as you see here, it says sign up first name. So over here in the sign up portion, we have a sign up. We will have an ID called first name. So if you see, right here, sign up first name. So through this, we capture the data, and it can be used. So it cannot be used straight away. That's why we use variable fname and so on. We catch those. We also are catching the errors for the validation. So if this is black, this error will be shown, so then we have to use this error to be shown, and so on. So here, as you can see, fname value, lname value, and we give these certain validations. The validations are in the index HTML as well. As you can see here, it's hidden. So we have the error code that we have hidden it, and it will come out later on. So we have the errors here as well. Yes. So the code that we have is usually shown in red. So if there is no error, we show it as green. If not, it's shown as red. There's an issue. So if not, it just says registration successful, as you saw. And because it was successful, it came as green instead of red. So that was one of the features that we did in the morning. But now the main thing was connecting it to the database. So we created a connection. Yes, you can see the password, but the password is only for this local database. So we have this section, which is actually used to prevent any SQL injections, as stated. So it gets queries in a unique way that we cannot do any SQL injections. So there is a set method of getting SQL queries. As you can see, it says query, the type, and the parameter. So anything out of that will not communicate with the database. So that prevents SQL injections up to a certain extent. So then we have our the main part of our work today, which is the validation part for creating the account process. So this is only one part because the connection makes the communication with the database, whereas this does the validations as well as the input. So yeah, similar to the JS, we use fname, lname, and take the data and use it using $_post to get it. So here we have the validations. Please enter the first name, last name, email address. As you can see, we have given a character limit of 150 for our email because it's actually unusual to find anything larger than that. And for the password, it's less than 20 characters. And also the passwords must match. So it first checks that and then checks this. Then we also have to check the terms and conditions tick, because without that there's no method of. That's actually something that has to be done by the user. So then once those are all passed, then we move into inserting into the database. So first the database actually has to check what account type that is selected. So the account type selects it from the database and checks it with that. And also there is a check email, because sometimes people can be creating accounts with the same email, which is not a good practice. So we have to check the database if the email is already registered. If it is, it will be alerted that the email is already registered and he has to use a different email. And then we come into entering a user into the database. So as you can see, given here we said query, type, and the parameter. So here we have the query, the type of query, and the parameters. So if you go out of that, this structure, you cannot enter data into the database. So as I said before, this is to prevent SQL injection. So yeah, that is there. And as shown before, we can input data in its database, except for this, the account type we have to, as the backend, we have to implement this to say ID number 1 is for sellers, ID number 2 is for buyers. So if we look at this, look at the users, so we only have one seller and the rest are all buyers, which is normally how it is in an e-commerce website. So that's how it is. And so if there are any issues leading to errors, so sometimes we can say like this user could have an issue with his account type, so that if there's a communication issue with the database, after inserting the ID, this is the error that we will get. We did not see an error like that because we fixed it. But previously on, while working, I got this error, so it has been rectified. And yeah, that is all for day 2. As you can see, we did some validation, we connected it to the database, and we updated the database from our GUI. And one thing I did not mention in the previous video was that we have to have the Apache server running on exam, and at the same time we need to have a stable connection with our databases, so the databases are connected and they are running in the background. And so all together we get this. So that is it for day 2. Thank you.